Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone. Welcome to my channel. My name is Ogbanje Joseph. Please subscribe to this channel, share, like, as well as drop a comment on the comment section. So, our lecture today is titled, Development and Underdevelopment in Africa, the explored and unexplored issues. Of course, the explored and unexplored issues of development and underdevelopment in Africa. Now, the challenge of development and underdevelopment of in Africa, and of course, the other third world countries, in general, has attracted the attention of scholars, leaders, politicians, commentators, and the international community over the years. The growing gap between developed and developing countries has dominated the international relations and diplomacy for a long time. The gap has led to constant capital influx, from developed countries to those in the third world countries, including Africa, with the goal of helping them, to overcome their problems and reduce the gap. Now, at this juncture, let us look at the concept of development. Now, development can be defined as a multi-dimensional process involving major changes in social structure, popular attitudes, and national institutions, as well as the acceleration of economic growth, reduction of inequality, and eradication of poverty. This presupposes that development is a multidimensional process involving reorganization and reorientation of the entire economic and social system, and it is a process of improving the quality of all human lives with three equally important aspects, which are basic components or core values. The three important aspects, include, the following. What are these three important aspects? They include sustenance, self-esteem, and of course, freedom. Now, having looked at the concept of development, let's now look at the concept of underdevelopment. Now, the concept of underdevelopment. Now, let us look at it now. Now, according to Nadi and Falodun, 2003, underdevelopment can be defined as a stage at which, the rate of growth of industrialization and the level of the national income are so low that domestic savings is not enough to finance the investment required, for future growth. Vina 1997, uses underdevelopment as, looks at underdevelopment as a country, okay, as a process in which a country which has good potential prospects, for using capital, labor, and natural resources, to better the present population, has failed to do that. Now, underdevelopment is actually a process in which a country who has all the potentials and prospects, to be rich and make its people rich, has become, has actually made its population to be very poor. So underdevelopment is not the absence of development. It is the inability, of the state to use, the development potentials to its advantage of changing the environment, changing the society, for better. Now, let us look at the explored issues now. Explored issues of development and underdevelopment in Africa. What are the explored issues? Now, the explored issues of development and underdevelopment in Africa are majorly exogenous. Exogenous factors, or the external factors that have caused the underdevelopment of the African society. These external factors include the following. Number one, slave trade. Now, slave trade, is actually a process in which the African society are properly underdeveloped. This is because the African societies actually lost over 15 million able-bodied young men and women, you know, which were actually removed from Africa, and about 65 to 75 million people died in transit. Okay, so slave trade is actually one of the reasons for the underdevelopment of African societies, and these are issues that have been explored. When we're talking about explored issues, we're talking about the obvious reasons. We're talking about issues that everybody is actually hammering on at every point in time, that they give reasons for the underdevelopment of the African societies. So, number one is slave trade. Number two is colonialism. Colonialism can be defined as a process in which aliens actually take control of the political, economic, and social, social control or social aspect of a particular society. In this case, we're talking about African society. Now, colonialism actually led to the disarticulation and disorientation of the African economy, which is exactly what brought about underdevelopment of the African societies. Okay, number three, center periphery relationship. Center periphery relationship. Now, the center periphery relationship, okay, is also called the dependency theory, where the economies of the African countries, okay, were articulated, okay, were articulated into the world capitalist economy, and of course, it has led to the underdevelopment of the African economy. That is actually, center periphery relationship. Then number four, lack of technology transfer. Now, there's lack of technology in African society. Now, the technology that have been transferred by the Western world, for example, are dilapidated and out of date technology. And of course, the ones that are still very modern are the ones that cannot be operated by the African societies or by the Africans. And so they still need, the expertise of the Western world to actually, to actually make use of this modern technology that have been transferred. So it can actually be equated to lack of transfer of technology, because any technology that is transferred and the African people cannot use it, it means such technology, has hitherto not been transferred. Okay, then the next one is neocolonialism. It's a new form of colonialism where the colonial masters have actually given, flag independence to the colonies, and the colonies are still tied to the apron strings of the colonial masters. So they remain in their metropolitan countries and remote control what happens within the African countries. Then we have globalization and liberalization. Globalization is actually deterritorialization. It's a process in which, is a process in which African countries' economies are opened, or they are, yeah, of course, they are open to coming in a free inflow and free outflow of businesses. Okay, that is actually globalization and liberalization. All of these lead to the underdevelopment of the African societies. Now, let us look at the unexplored issues. What are the unexplored issues? Now, the unexplored issues have to do with the internal factors that have affected the African development over the years. Now, the internal factors include the following. Number one, the problem of corruption. Of course, corruption is actually one of the reasons, for the underdevelopment of the African societies. Corruption is, a cankerworm that have eaten deep into the fabric of the African societies, and it has continued to, cause her underdevelopment. Number two, weak governmental institutions. What is prevalent in Africa is strong men and not strong institutions. Okay, so there is actually very weak institution in several parts of Africa, and that has led to the underdevelopment of the African societies. The next one is geographical location. Geographical location. Several African countries' geography is not actually favorable for, for development. When we're talking about geographical location, we're actually looking at some other environmental factors, that have inhibited development in the African society. The next one is leadership failure. Of course, Chinua Achebe actually insisted that the problem with Africa and Nigeria, to be specific, is the problem of leadership. And across African countries, the problem of development has been the problem of leadership. A lot of African leaders actually are not wired, or they are not interested in bringing about the development of the countries which they lead, but they are just interested in developing their pockets. Okay, the next one, the number 5, is ethnic and religious sentiments. Ethnic and religious sentiment. Ethnicity and religion are two monsters that have brought about underdevelopment of the African societies. Where there is development, ethnicity brings it down. Where there is development, religion actually brings it, religious sentiment brings it down. All of these are actually factors that have affected the development of the African societies. The next one is political instability. Okay, the next one is internal crisis. The next one is sit tight syndrome of African leaders. Okay, and the last point of the unexplored issue is lack of democratic culture in Africa. Thank you very much.